Hello everybody and welcome to this video by the Vaidya's Chess Hub, and in this video we are going to learn how to manage a draw when you have the opposition. Although your opponent might be having an extra pawn, if you have the opposition like the position that we are going to study, if you play accurately you will be able to get a draw and you will be able to get half point out of that game. But it's very important that you play accurately and understand the basics. So before we actually start playing the position, I want you to know what is opposition. Opposition is making our king stand in the same file or the rank as the opponent king, leaving one square distance. You know, the kings cannot stand next to each other. But there is one more interesting thing. There's also something called as a diagonal opposition. So for example, if we were to move our king to f3, we get in chess what is called as a diagonal opposition. That's also important in some more positions. There are endgame positions where that kind of opposition is important. But just remember that this square over here will be said to be in opposition. So if we move our king to d3, our king will get the opposition. So when I use the word opposition, you should definitely understand that hitherto that standing on the same file as the king with the distance between them is known as the opposition. So take opposition whenever there's an opportunity. Point number one. Point number two is that you must stay ahead of the passed pawn. I repeat those 2 points before we finally make a start, that is moving on the board. The first thing is take opposition whenever there's an opportunity, and the second is stay ahead of the passed pawn. So let's get started. In this position, it is white to play, and you will notice that white can take the opposition. I've already made it clear. If white moves to d3, now we have what in chess is called the opposition. Now black obviously can try giving you a check, so e4 check, and the second principle is to stay ahead of the pawn, remember? So you would go back to e3, and now the only move black king has if he wants to maintain support for the pawn on e4 is king to e5. Now it's white to play and you must stay ahead of the pawn, so try to stay on the same file, the king on e2. And now it's black to play, and black has a choice here. Black could move his king to the d4 or to the f4 square. So let's say the king goes to the d4 square. Again, I'm sure that you know the opposition will be king d2. Well done there if you thought the same. Again, black could try giving you a check. You stay ahead of the pawn. The only move for the king is to go to e4. You stay ahead of the pawn, the same file. You play king e1. And now again, black king has the option here either to go to the d3 square or to the f3 square. This time, let's say the king goes to the f3 square. Then again, the opposition square. Very well done. If you thought, I really think that you got it even before I was about to complete the line here. So king f1, that's right. Black can try giving you a check one final time. You come back to the square which is ahead of the pawn, and the only move here that the black king will have to maintain the support is the king to e3, and as you can see the computer has already suggested it is stalemate. Now why is it stalemate? Because if you remember, if you haven't watched the video on what is checkmate and stalemate, I recommend you do that. Our channel has got already a video made exclusively on that. But over here, just to make a quick explanation, our king is not in check, but it is our turn to move, and you see that we have been left no square by the black pieces. Our king cannot move to d2, not to f2. There's a check on d1. There will be a check on f1, but the square the king actually is standing on, there's no check there. So this position is stalemate. It's a stalemate. You get half a point out of it. Let's say if black knows this and black tries to play something else. So let's say in this position, he played a king f3, but let's say that he tries moving his king to the d4 square. So remember, our principle is to stay ahead of the pawn. Over here, you cannot get the opposition because you'll automatically be in check. So that's not possible. So you try to stay ahead of the pawn. You play king e2. Again, the only square for the king to maintain support for the pawn is going to be king to e4. You again stay in line with the pawn, stay ahead of the pawn. And if black tries to change the strategy, comes to d3 square. Now this time again the opposition, you would know now, is surely not king f1, but this time it will be king to d1. Again the same check, you get ahead of the pawn, and the only square for the king is to get to the e3 square. Again a stalemate. So I want you to set it up over the board and practice it as many times as it's possible for you, unless you master it completely, because it happens in a lot of games. You need to display the skill to get the half point, the crucial half point out of the game, especially when you have opposition. If you play incorrectly, then it will mean that black will be, or your opponent will be able to successfully promote to a queen, and you would lose. But if you play correctly, you'll be able to hold this position to a draw. So I recommend you set it up on the board. Remember these two principles before we conclude. One is that you will take opposition whenever it's possible and try to stay ahead of the pawn. Very important. So I'm hopeful that this video really educated you a lot on how to hold position to a draw when you have the opposition. It did teach you what opposition is, and as I keep saying, keep playing, keep enjoying, and keep learning. And thank you so much for watching this video. If you like the ideas that our channel shares with you, or the education given here on this channel, please do give us a thumbs up. Please give your feedback, that is so important for us. Subscribe to the channel if you think we are sincere enough in our effort. And thank you so much for watching this video.